cloud seeding is conventionally done with a chemical called silver iodide. Its LD50, so its lethal dose, is 10 times higher than aspirin. And we're using about 50 grams per each operation. That's as much as can fit in the palm of your hand, right? That's less flour than is in a slice of bread. So the amount that accumulates into watersheds is in the parts per trillion after decades of operation, and we have data to prove that from programs that exist throughout the United States. This leads me into another point, which is the precedent that other states have set in cloud seeding permitting and licensing. So I think that, per what I said at the top of my commentary, the spirit of this bill to protect Floridians, to protect Americans from environmental pollution, that is great. And I think that permitting and licensing absolutely should exist. It does exist in states like Texas and Utah and Idaho. So this isn't a blue state or red state issue. California has a process as well. New Mexico has a process. And we don't want anybody wantonly modifying the weather. So implementing a permitting regime so that it's only done responsibly and safely with best-in-class meteorological practices, that makes sense. And we advocate for that. Not only do we advocate for that, we, RainMaker Technology Corporation, has engineers in all of those states that I mentioned that are actively modifying the weather, that are actively enhancing precipitation for farmers and reservoirs and cities that are undergoing drought. And that brings me into like my third and closing point. Like, what is this bill about? What are we voting on here? Yes, this has to do with Florida, first and foremost. I don't think that burdening the state with more regulation, with more permitting on investigation is something that it would necessarily be excited about, but if it was for the sake of protecting Floridians, that makes sense. I don't think that we want to prevent Florida's access to best-in-class technology for their agriculture and their water and their wildlife, but more than that, it has to do with the United States, both domestically and abroad. No ifs, ands, or buts. Mar-a-Lago exists here. Florida is a very consequential state within the United States, and if weather modification is banned here, that sets a precedent to deprive farmers in even more arid regions of the country from getting access to water from cloud seeding. And so if only for the sake of other Americans, for other farming interests, for other cities like Salt Lake, which is currently radically under budget for their water supply, and people are getting respiratory issues from the dust kicked up from the evaporation, cloud seeding could mitigate that. If this precedent is set here, it could affect other Americans. And not only could it affect us immediately within the United States, but long-term it could affect us geopolitically, because China has a $300 million annual budget for weather modification research and operations.